Hello there, friends, and welcome back to FunAhead TV. In today's episode, we are doing BMW stuff again. We're actually going to do the valve cover gasket on this engine. It's been long overdue that we do the valve cover gasket on this guy, and that's what we're going to do today. So to start out, we need to take off all of the stuff in the back that's currently preventing access for the back two cylinders. So you can see this is a straight 6-cylinder. We really only have access to 4 of the cylinders here, and then the back 2 are covered up by this cowl area. So there are cabin air filters on either side. Actually, there's 2 cabin air filters because BMW. And then the rest of this cowl can also come down, and then that grants us pretty solid access to the overall top of the engine. So we're going to start by taking that stuff off, and we'll go from there. So we need to start by taking the cabin air filters off. All you have to do to take this cabin air filter off is there's this little bracket here. There is a small little 13mm hex there that it's just a cam lock tool, and you turn it about 180 degrees, which then allows us to take the entire cabin air filter up and out of the way. Do the same thing on the other side. From here, there's a handful of these cam locks. Again, this little trim piece in the middle here that needs to come up. And there's a cam lock underneath that. There we go. Okay. All right, one down. And there we go. Sometimes it kind of gets stuck on the seats. Alright, so at least for the 5 Series, I'm not sure if the E90 is the same way. That's the 3 Series of this gen. But for the 5 Series, you have this kind of support bar that goes to each strut tower. So you got to take this up. There we go. So as far as getting the valve cover off goes, we're going to take out the coil packs, and then we need to remove this harness here that runs along this side of the engine, the Valvetronic solenoid as well. From there, we should be able to lift this all up. So I think from here, I'm just gonna put you guys on a time lapse. Should be fairly straightforward. Alright everybody, well, as you just saw, we got the valve cover off, and here is the beautiful BMW valve train, complete with the Valvetronic hardware right here. If you're unfamiliar with BMW's throttling system and their valve train system, allow me to nerd out for 3 seconds. So basically this system allows the engine to be completely throttled by the intake cam. There is a throttle body in this car, however, that's only used as a backup. The main way that BMW actually throttles their engines is through variable lift of the intake valves. The way that works is you have this shaft, which is actually called the eccentric shaft, which is this one right here, and it turns and allows for the intake cam to push the intake valves down at variable lift. So that's what this motor here, that's what it does. It very quickly turns that worm gear, which then turns this gear right here, which then turns the eccentric shaft accordingly. And these cams have varying depth. You can see it's deeper on this side and shallower on this side. So when it's on idle, it's how it's configured now. But when you go full throttle, it turns this eccentric shaft to allow the intake valves to then open further, as opposed to being on idle where it opens just a little bit. Anyway, pretty freaking cool in my opinion. You know, it's just very unique and very, very German, but also it just works so well. It's such an effective system and allows for basically immediate throttle response, which is really, really cool. But anyway, everything looks pretty good, I will say. I mean, you know, these cams certainly look like, you know, they're used. They have 160,000 miles on them, but nothing is crazy glaring. Let's see, we'll do a quick look at the timing chain guide here. It's kind of hard to tell, but at least first glance, it looks pretty good. This is the first time I've had the valve cover off on this engine. It's good to see that overall it looks really good. But anyway, yeah, so we're going to be replacing these gaskets. Of course, the primary valve cover gasket here that goes along the outside, but then the inner one too, which is the one that was actually failing on this car, because I was getting some oil down on the spark plug wells there. And then there's another gasket that is on the valve cover itself, which is in the back room now, for this hole basically, where the Valvetronic solenoid mates up with the valve cover. Now, basically what I'm going to do, and it's not super exciting, but the thing that you have to do now is clean up really well, right? So I'm going to remove the old gasket material, make sure that the mating surface is really nice and clean. Clean that up. We'll put the new gaskets in, and then put it all back together. So the main thing that I kind of struggled with was taking this back PCV tube off. And whenever you're taking old plastic corrugated tubing apart, you don't want to move it much, because odds are you can break it very easily. It's just old dry rotted plastic, and it's been heat cycled 8 zillion times, and you can't really flex it. So be very gentle with it. In fact, like, this is like as much as you want to move it. If I moved it past this at all, I guarantee you I'd crack it, and that would be such a pain in the butt to replace, because I don't know where the heck that thing goes, down in the abyss somewhere. So that was kind of a pain to get off. I had to use some picks to loosen that up, and it's on the very back side of the engine. This is the harness side for the injectors, and you have to kind of get a pick in there and push these little clips down on each side so that you can then lift it up. So, but it gets a little surgical to do that, but then once those clips are back and out of the way, it's very easy to just lift this entire thing up. Other than that, yeah, pretty straightforward process. And then obviously assembly is the reverse. On the note of variable valve timing and lift, these are the Vanos solenoids here. Actually, sorry, the Vanos solenoids are down there, but these are the actuators here. And so these control the phasing of the cams. And so of course you have, this sprocket is fixed in with the timing chain, right? But then this allows the cam to turn independently of this within some margin or some degree. And that basically just, of course, allows for optimization of engine running. You can have more or less intake and exhaust valve opening overlap. It just, it allows for a lot more controllability, and you can really optimize your combustion that way. Anyway, all right, let's get back to actually replacing gaskets, and we'll stop nerding out now. Everything is now back together. So the next steps are, we need to use our BMW scan tool, which is a BMW specific tool. It can run all of the BMW specific calibrations. So we need to relearn the Valvetronic solenoid now that it has been removed. So we need to run the test for that so it can learn the limits. Also, most importantly, we need to add oil, because I just did an oil change. So there's currently no oil in the engine, so I'm going to do that. But aside from that, the valve cover gasket and all related hardware are back in place. As you can see, the cowl is back in place as well. Looks like we never even touched it to begin with. Pretty easy peasy. It does take a little bit of time. It's a little bit tedious, so just take your time when you're doing this kind of job, because there's a lot of things that could potentially go wrong if you're trying to rush it. Do your best. Make sure you're just not throwing this together. You're doing the job in the first place, so you might as well do a good job, right? So you go into powertrain, engine electronics, and then, okay, so we just went into adjustment functions, learning Valvetronic limit positions. I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna hit this, yes. All right, now once I hit this button, it's gonna start doing it. Okay, see, limit position successfully learned. Cool.